Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I own 52, now 53 units of real estate and help coach people to buy their first multifamily deal. So I just got under contract on my 53rd unit, which is a new build property in Huntsville, Alabama. And it's kind of crazy. It happened really fast, but I was just basically looking on Lennar. And I ended up calling the Lennar consultant in Huntsville, Alabama, and just said, hey, do you have any deals going on right now? And, lucky timing for me, it's the end of the quarter. So Lennar's quarter ends end of August. So I was just like, hey, do you have any good deals that you have going on right now that are great for investors? And they're like, yeah, we're discounting properties about, $22,000, give or take right now. So, originally it was let's say $315, and they gave $22,000 off. So I think the price ended up being $295,000 or something like that. And then I said, okay, that's a pretty decent discount. So, got my property manager / realtor involved, and she said, you know what, we own homes in these communities and they rent for roughly $1 per square foot, and the most popular is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, or 4-bedroom, roughly 2,100 square foot, and these kind of rent for $2,100 to $2,200. So I pulled up the list of inventory, and there's a lot of inventory going on. So I just had it was literally a call of me, Lennar, and my property manager / realtor, and my realtor would say, okay, I like these 3 communities. So from those 3 communities, we filtered it to just the 4 bedrooms because those rent the best. And I was specifically targeting ones that were 2,100 square foot, so I can get 2,100 in rent. And I just ended up choosing the one of the biggest discount, which was $22,000. So and ended up being about $295,000. And I just said, okay, because I want to do my new construction BRRRR, and I really hope it works, right? I really hope it works. But what I want to do is I said, okay, if I pay all cash, how much of a discount can I get? So they said that the cash discount was $35,000 on that, which is, I think, ended up being $259,000. And basically, if you buy something all cash, you can close quick. So I can meet their quarter end goal because I'm not going through a lender. So, I know I can close quick, and, I get a $35,000 discount. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, this would be about $259,000. But I kind of at that time thought that, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad either. And I was just like, well, it's a buyer's market. I should get home run deals. So I basically, because my intent was to do a cash out refinance, pull out all my money that I put in the deal, own an asset with zero of my own dollars in there, and still have it cash flow or break even, right? So for me, I kind of ran the numbers, and for it to work for me, I said that it has to be around the total loan amount has to be about $230,000, which means I have to buy it cash for $230,000 so that I can do a 80% cash out or 75 to 80% cash out refinance to pull up my money. And I own this asset with $0 in there, or I just put very little, and I basically would be able to, cash flow maybe $150, $200 a month, call it break even after, CapEx reserves, vacancy reserves, and whatnot. So basically I, counter offered, hey, I was looking at 230, but I'll counter you at 240. I can close quick. I have cash. And they're just like, no, we can't really do much for you, but we can give you another $3,000 off. So it ended up being $256,000. And once again, I was like, well, I was hoping they would work more with me, but I get it. It's Lennar. They're a big builder. So, it is what it is. And if you look at the original price of $315, which could be inflated, and I bought for $256, that's roughly a 20% discount. So I just said, okay, well, if I were to do my cash out refinance and I buy at 80% or 20% discount, if I get a lender that's allowing me to do a cash out refi at 80% loan to value, I can pull out most of my money. If I do 75% cash out refinance, which is most lenders, I could leave about roughly 5-ish% in the deal. So, call it $20,000, $30,000 left in the deal. So I just said, okay, I said, you know what? I want the property. It'll rent well, and Christine and I, basically put our money in, and we kind of even thought about it. Like, if we own this property free and clear, and let's just say the rents are $2,100, I think what we calculated was the property tax was $100 a month, property management was $200 a month, HOA was like $40 a month, and then insurance was about $100 a month, roughly. So we figured that, let's just say expenses were, what is that, like $500. So if I got $2,100 in rents minus $500, it's $1,600 a month. There's no debt on this property. So you took $1,600, you times that by 12. That's roughly 18-ish to 20,000. And you divide that by $256,000, which we're all in. I think you end up being about 7.5% return on your money. And I said, that's not bad, because we just have a lot of cash sitting in our banks, and it's earning maybe 3.5%. So we can almost double our return to 7%, and it's just sitting there, right? And then the money can be tax free because you have depreciation, versus if I have dividends coming from my bank account, I have to pay taxes on that. So that's not a bad option too, and we're a little too cash heavy. And then what my intent was, which now I reached out to I think 6 lenders. I reached out to Convoy Home Loans. I reached out to Quickline Capital, Velocity Mortgage, Corvest, and then I think Easy Street Capital, so something like that, like more of your debt service coverage ratio lenders, and basically trying to see how the appraisal process would work. So what I'm hoping is that they're not looking at what I bought the property at, because I bought it at $256, which is a discount. What I'm hoping is they look at the appraised value, which is $315, right? So I just got one quote back from Quickline, and they had the as is value for the refinance as $256K. And I just said, no. In my mind, the value is around $300, because I have sales comps in that area for $300. So, it's because if I just do 80% at $256, I'm leaving, still money in the deal, and I don't want to leave that much money in the deal. So maybe, and one kind of wrinkle they gave me is if it's a suburban area on the appraisal, on the map, you get 80% cash out refinance. If it's a rural area, it's 65% loan to value. So this only works if it qualifies as suburban. So I was just like, okay, well, not as good as I thought, but that's why you reach out to multiple lenders. But their interest rate was roughly about 7.6%, which was a little bit high. And with a buy down of 4% in fees, which is, pretty decently high as well, you would basically lower your interest rate to, I think, about 1% to high sixes. So, I haven't got the full numbers for Convoy Home Loans, but I'm hoping that the buy down isn't as significant, but they kind of quoted me mid to high sixes. Yeah, I don't know what the fees are. So I'm waiting to hear back from my other lenders to see what the cost breakdown is. But like I said, I'm really hoping that, because I want to separate it. I'm I bought for $256 at a discount, but the appraised value, in my opinion, is 300 plus, 300, 310. So I want that 75%, 80% loan to value based off of that 310 to 315, not based off of what I bought it at $256, because I bought it at a discount, right? I saw sales comps where people bought this house a few months ago for $315. So that's what I texted Quickly. I'm hey, you had the appraised value at $256, which is what I bought at, but I think the value is going to be $315,000, right? And I can still hit that debt service coverage ratio based on the rents of about 1.05, which was their minimum. So, I'm trying to see, and worst case, I might end up having to leave money in the deal, but that's okay. That's okay. If I can pull out more money, I'll do more of these deals. If I can't pull as much money, then I can't do as many of them as I would like. But I hope this works, because this is how I can scale, where every quarter I could buy one of these properties. What I can do is I could, wait for the quarter end discounts. And then if I pay cash, I know I'm going to get $35,000 to $38,000 on top of that. And I know what the rents will be. And I wouldn't buy multiple in the same community. I would make sure I'm diversified amongst different communities to, spread myself out. But this is a great way to slowly buy real estate with, no to low money in the deal. I don't have to deal with renovations because it's a new construction BRRRR. And and if interest rates drop, like this is assuming I'm underwriting at a 7% interest rate, but if interest rates eventually drop to like 5% or 4.5, I can refinance it, and it's gonna juice up my cash flows even further. So that's what I'm really, really, looking forward to doing, for that. So, pretty excited for my first deal, but now I'm just like trying to see like what the value is. I think it'll make more sense for these lenders. Like once I just buy the property, I close on it, and then I just said, hey, like this appraised at like this amount, and then, I want to do a cash out refinance, and then as a worst case scenario, like Christine and I, we don't mind just parking our money there, for a while, because like I said, like literally, we're earning a 7.5% return on our money if the money's trapped there, which is better than our bank accounts. And you have appreciation hopefully, and then by then I just can tell the lender, hey, like, this is what the value is now, right? So maybe it just needs time, and then the lender will like kind of move on and just treat it as a pure cash out refinance, right? I think they're fixated on the price I bought at. So we'll see. Like I said, I have to be nimble. I have to play the game, but obviously, if I have to wait like 3-6 months, I can't wait to the next end of quarter. So their end of fiscal year is end of October. So in early end of October / early November, I'd look for those deals. If there's a great deal, then I'm gonna strike all cash again, assuming I can pull my money out. And it is hard to rent during the holiday season. So like November, December, January. It's hard to rent out because of the holidays. People don't want to move, and then also people don't want to buy houses during this time. So like I'm sure I can get a good deal, but I know that like it might take me a little bit longer to rent it out, or I might have to rent it at a lower rate because people aren't really moving during that time. But like I said, if I can get an amazing enough discount and do the strategy, that'd be great. So like I said, reaching out to multiple lenders, and trying to see quotes, and like I said, hopefully I can pull up most of my money. And I even, like I said, I texted Quickline. I was like, hey, like I think the appraised value is gonna be 310. Is it possible to push the appraised value up to 310? And like I said, I'll still hit your debt service coverage ratio. So I'm speaking their language, right? I think the appraised value would be 310. I'm gonna hit your debt service coverage ratio because they underwrote it at 256K, 80% loan to value, and my debt service coverage ratio, because the loan was so little, was like 1.45. So like, well, I've 0.4 in wiggle room for DSCSR. So like, could you bump it up and see? Because I know, like, if my all-in cost is like 2,000, I'll hit that debt service coverage ratio. So, it's really pitching that, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll just find a lender that wants to work with me. That's why you have to reach out to multiple lenders, and they give you quotes. So anyways, I'll actually give you a numbers breakdown, a visual, like I'll just screen share an Excel sheet to give you more of a visual of the breakdown of the deal and what I'm hoping to do for the cash out refinance. But like I said, that's what I'm hoping to do. Maybe that won't be the case. So I may be jumping the gun, because I just share what I'm doing, but this is my current thoughts right now. Wanted to share that, and I'll show you the numbers. And if it works, like, this is amazing because I can just buy a unit every quarter. And this is kind of exciting because it's the first deal that Christine, my wife, and I are buying together. So yeah, very, very excited. So anyways, please let me know what questions you have. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want one-on-one coaching, click on my link tree down below. You can send me an email. Otherwise, please, hope to see you next one. Thank you so much.